Stu, you're a good boy. Yes, you are. Is that a ball? Is that for me? Okay, are you ready? Are you ready? Go get it. Now bring it back. Come on. Good boy. Good boy. A year ago, my baby died. And it was important to me that my German Shepherd, Stu, understand and accept the concept of death. The first week wasn't so bad, with all our friends and family around smothering Stu with affection. And Todd was home from work that week, dumping lo mein and casseroles accidentally on purpose onto the floor for Stu to indulge in. So, Stu didn't notice the absence as much, or at least he didn't seem to. He trotted around the house happily, oblivious to the fact that the baby, whom he had had a big hand in raising, was missing. Then the party ended. Todd went back to work, packed his briefcase, and kissed me goodbye. He nearly tripped over Stu in his rush to get out of the house. What was I to do with the baby dead? There were no diapers, no screaming, no feeding. And what had I done before the baby? I had been pregnant. Pregnant for longer than she had been alive. And what had I done before I got pregnant? I suppose I had cooked, cleaned the house, or taken Stu to the park, but it didn't seem like it could have been nearly enough to take up a whole day. Classic Roman philosopher Cicero once said, "The life of the dead is placed in the memory of the living." Planted firmly in one woman's mind is the life and death of her infant child, whose cries she can hear in the nighttime. As Susan struggles with the reality of death, her husband, Todd, is barely hanging on himself, making him an unreliable grief counselor. Fortunately, there is one other important figure in her life who can help her in her desperation: her dog. Watch as this woman attempts to describe the act of dying to her oblivious pup, Stu, and explaining death to the dog by Susan Parabo. A few days after the baby died, I was sitting on the couch, and Stu wasn't in his normal place next to me, so I got up to look for him. Stu? Stu? Nothing. I found him upstairs in the baby's room. He was lying in the middle of the empty floor. Stu, what are you doing? He got up lazily and walked around the room in circles. You could tell he was looking for the baby. No, come here, Stu. No baby. Baby's gone. He looked at me with the universal blank dog look. He had no idea what I was talking about. No baby. It was then that I realized the impossibility of my situation. It wasn't even like trying to explain death to a child. The dog simply couldn't understand the language. He had the brain the size of a walnut, and all he could understand was that the baby wasn't where she was supposed to be. I imagined it must be even worse than knowing she was dead. At least Todd had been able to logically spell it out for me that morning, to get me to stop shaking her and trying to wake her up. Hold the little girl in my face, point to her chest. No breathing! No breathing. It was then that I decided I needed to teach Stu about death. I figured he had a right to know, being a member of the family. I came up with an idea. On our bookshelf, we had a big Life magazine book. Best of Life or something like that. I opened it up and paged through it until I found what I wanted. Stu, look. JFK. He's dead. Lee Harvey Oswald, he's dead too, Stu. Martin Luther King Jr., he's dead. They are all dead, Stu. This is death. What was I expecting? I don't know. If Todd had been there, he would have clapped the book shut and said the dog didn't know what was going on and that he'd be over in a day and a half anyway. But Todd wasn't there. Strange things happen when you're alone in the house with pets all day. In the middle of that night, I woke up and heard the baby crying. I sat up and reached for my glasses before I remembered. It wasn't a staggering thing. It washed over me slowly, like the way you remember what day it is when you wake up in the morning. I looked at Todd lying on his stomach next to me. His mouth was open and his face was pressed against the pillow. Todd, I said quietly. But I didn't have the courage to touch him, to wake him up and force him to share the grief, to make him try to explain to me why I heard the baby crying when the baby had been dead for over a week. I laid back down and began thinking of the simplicity of a dog's mind. I tried to think of a way to explain to Stu exactly what was going on. The next day I decided I would go ahead and take Stu to the park, force him down the slide for a good laugh and give each of us a spin on the merry-go-round for a change of pace. There would be no baby carriage jack in the sand, no need to worry about it slipping from my grip and careening down a hill to the creek. The park seemed different with no baby. It seemed a lot safer. And then I found the squirrel. Stu walked right past it. He didn't even notice it. But I saw it. It was lying on its side in the grass. Its mouth was open, and its eyes were two empty holes. Other than that, it was fine. Perfectly whole. Not the work of a cat or a child with a BB gun. Stu! Stu, come here, boy! Come here! Come here, Stu. Good boy. Stu saw the squirrel and stopped for a moment. He looked at me. I reached out to touch the squirrel, and Stu took a step back. Its fur was damp, brittle. Stu walked up to the squirrel, turned his head away and looked at me. He looked at me like I had gotten him into something that he wasn't ready for. Stu, this is important. Stu, listen. Look at the squirrel, Stu. Stu, look at the squirrel. The squirrel is dead. Do you understand, Stu? Dead! Stu backed away from me and the animal. I tried to hold on to him, but he pulled away from me. He ran around me in circles because he thought he was in trouble. I woke once again in the middle of the night. But this time, I didn't hear any crying. I got into bed anyway and went to the baby's room. Stu hopped up and followed me. He walked around the room, smelling out the emptiness, the way he had the day before, and the day before that, and the way that I realized he probably would for quite some time. Everything was quiet. And I wanted to say to Stu that that was it. That was death. Quiet. But Stu continued to walk around the room, trying to pick up the scent of the baby, and I realized he would never understand death. All that he would come to accept is that the baby was not coming back.
Sorry, did you hear me?